Good evening, folks. This is Deb. So let's talk about last night's game. Again, another game where the Indiana Fever got behind the eight ball and had to dig their way out. They lost, frankly, to a better team. There's no two ways about it, gang. All right. Um, the fact that this Indiana team is still in the hunt for a playoff position should have us rallying around the team. Some of you guys can dislike Stephanie White. Some of you guys can dislike Kelly Krauskopf. That's fine. But the Indiana Fever players deserve better than to just be shot down, okay? As I have said, we're basically a team that is being held together with bubble gum and paper clips and elastic bands, because this is far from the team that the Indiana Fever envisioned when they started off the season. All right. They've been decimated by injury. It started badly at the beginning when DeWanna Bonner pulled her disappearing act, and losing the number one guard in the WNBA, and certainly the heart and soul of the Fever and the engine that makes them run for the majority of the season. That would have been enough of a blow. But to then lose, Sophie Cunningham for the season, Sydney Colson for the season, and Ari McDonald for the season, was also not good. We got Chloe Bibby, and she's been injured. Okay, so, and again, all of the hardship players are players who are not playing in the WNBA. They are not in the WNBA because their skill set doesn't meet the challenges of the WNBA. It's as simple as that. Some of these players were playing in Europe. Chloe Bibby was playing in Australia, where the competition is not as great as it is in the WNBA. It's as simple as that. So we can dump all we want, but we're playing with a very small contingent of really good players right now. So we are being outmatched on many levels. And I'm not saying that some of the hardship signings haven't been playing good. They have. I'm going to go over some numbers right now for you, as a matter of fact, from last night's game. I won't take too much time with this. Kelsey Mitchell, 29 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Lexi Hull, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist. Aaliyah Boston, 11 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Odyssey Sims, 5 points, 1 rebound, 2 assists. Natasha Howard, 4 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Ariel Powers, these are bench players now. Ariel Powers, 6 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Brianna Turner, 4 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist. Damaris Dantas, 2 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Shea Petty, no points, 2 rebounds, no assists. So, Brianna Turner, okay, she's really a defensive player. All right. They don't put her in there for offense, but last night, 6 rebounds, 4 points for someone playing as few minutes as she does. I thought that was a good showing for Brianna Turner. I think she's one of those players that people like to dump on, but she's a role player and she's there for a reason. Not every player on your team is going to be one of the starting 5, okay? They're not. So, and last night marked Caitlin Clark's 19th straight game due to this groin injury. Now, where is she? We don't know. We know she's shooting threes because the other night she shot 54 and made 50 of them. We've seen her shooting from the logo, and she's making those. What she hasn't done yet is full contact practice, and they're working towards that now, okay? So once we get there, and, we're not worried about whether she can shoot. She's shooting. And as I've said, I thought all along poor showing on 3-point shots earlier in the season was a result of her injuries, not a result of being in a slump. And, it's a good sign that she can use her legs to shoot now, and that's the way she scores her points. When she's shooting from that distance is mostly with her legs, and she has said that herself. So we know that part, but the part that we don't know is, can she withstand the physicality taking the ball up the court? And that's why they have to get her into full contact practice. Now, that doesn't mean that she has to be 5-on-5 full contact practice. We know that. They've already stated that. But she has to be in some type of full contact practice where they test her on her endurance and her ability to do what she needs to do to make a return. And that's only fair. It's only, we were saying at the beginning of the season that she was coming back too soon, okay? And that they needed to think of her long term, and they're doing that. They're not hiding that. They're being transparent about that. They continue to say her long-term health and well-being is what really matters, because she is the franchise player, okay? They need her moving forward. So, last night, there was a little bit of a to-do between DeWanna Bonner and Caitlin Clark. I don't know if any of you guys caught it. I almost missed it because, as I say, I couldn't watch the whole game and stay awake. But I do DVR all the games, so I can at least stay, I can at least be up on what I'm talking about. But I actually saw this on Twitter. And at one point, Caitlin Clark came out onto the floor to talk about the fact that she was telling the ref there was no foul. And DeWanna Bonner started walking towards her, saying that it was a foul, and Caitlin Clark basically just told her to go back to her bench. It was funny. So let me see if I have that. I do. So hold on here.
Yes, it was a foul. And then you see Caitlin Clark to the right.
She is right there.
Out, John at DeWanna Bonner.
Yeah, go sit down.
DeWanna Bonner says, yeah, it was a foul. And Clark is saying, no foul, no foul. Yes, it was a foul. And then you see Caitlin Clark.
What? So tell her to go back right there. Go back to your bench.
DeWanna Bonner.
Go away.
DeWanna Bonner says, yeah, it was a foul.
So let me just say something about the love-hate thing between Caitlin Clark and DeWanna Bonner. Now, when DeWanna Bonner came here, Caitlin Clark was very excited. She considered DeWanna Bonner a legend in the WNBA, all right? You will remember the game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse where DeWanna Bonner used 2 free throws to become the number 3 leading scorer in the WNBA. You remember Clark getting the Gainbridge Fieldhouse crowd up on their feet for her. You will remember all of the things that Clark said about DeWanna Bonner, that when she speaks in the clubhouse, we listen, all of that. But I will tell you, though, when DeWanna Bonner pulled her no-show, Caitlin Clark changed her attitude a bit, and rightfully so, because all I can say is, to me, it looked like there might have been some tomfoolery there with DeWanna Bonner coming here to begin with, okay? And then all of a sudden the fit wasn't good. And I do know that the Fever tried to trade and couldn't find a suitable trading partner, so they ended up just waiving her. So she took what money she could get from the Fever and then went and signed with the Phoenix Mercury, where her wife plays. So in my head, I can't get rid of that whole scenario. I don't know. It was to me, she may be a legend in the way she plays the game, but the way she handles herself was anything but professional. And all of the nonsense surrounding her not being at the games and not being at practice for personal reasons. You know, that's really what pissed me off with the Fever, is that they made it seem like she had a personal crisis going on, a real problem. And it wasn't that at all. They were just basically covering for her. So be that as it may, it's water under the bridge, but clearly Caitlin Clark has no use for DeWanna Bonner right now. So that's the way that goes. Now, what games are left for the Fever? Let's go over that real quick. Because currently, they're 20, I believe 20 and 19. Okay. 20 and 19. They have a game Friday. Chicago Sky. Chicago Sky, I believe at 9 and 30, they are out of the playoffs. Okay. That game with Chicago is in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Guys, that should be a win. All right. That should absolutely be a win. All right. That is the 5th Friday night, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Chicago Sky. Okay. Then they have September 7th at Washington with the Washington Mystics, who are also out of the playoffs. They are 16 and 25. The Fever can certainly win on the road. They've proved it before. That should be a win for the Fever. If they can string together a couple of wins, that'd be a good thing. Okay? September 9th is the final game of the year for the Fever. And it's against the number 1 seed, the Minnesota Lynx. Now, I believe they're 32 and 8. It's some ridiculous number. They're having a great season. They are the number 1 seed in the playoffs. And maybe on September 9th, and that's at home, that's at Gainbridge. Maybe on September 9th, they rest their starters for the playoffs. Okay? So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. All I can say to the Fever is win and you're in. And Kelsey Mitchell has said it. And Stephanie White has said it. You focus on what you can control. Don't look beyond Friday night. Focus on the Sky. Beat the Sky. Then we move on from there. Rather than looking at all 3 games in succession all at one time. Focus on the Sky. 9 and 30. They're 9 and 30, and they're playing at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. This should be a win, okay? So, one other thing in closing, okay? Now, I have had my issues with Stephanie White. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not sure she's the right coach for the Fever. I don't think this year is a fair measure of that, because this has been a snake bit year. You guys remember me making jokes at the beginning of the year. And I showed you the Fever on the front cover of Sports Illustrated. And I talked about the Sports Illustrated curse, right? I'm not sure that's urban legend anymore, okay? Because they were on the front cover of Sports Illustrated for a reason. Because if they had remained healthy, they would have been a powerhouse. But as it turns out, we're playing with a bunch of players, and the team is being held together with bubblegum, and elastic bands. Because many of the players on the Indiana Fever are not players who are playing in the WNBA, and that's for a reason. So the fact that this team is still competing at this level, whether you care about Stephanie White isn't the point. Whether you don't like Kelly Crosskopf is not the issue. The players don't deserve to be dumped on, okay? They don't. Because they've worked hard. The Kelsey Mitchells, the Aaliyah Bostons, the Natasha Howard, the Lexi Hulls, I mean, you know, when you get beyond that, you're playing with your bench, your deep bench, and honestly, Brianna Turner has done a great job. But the rest of these players, they weren't intending to be on the Fever this year. And the Fever wasn't intending on having to sign them. They're a hardship contract for a reason, okay? The players deserve better, okay? They work hard. Do they make mistakes? Do they have down games? Do they do stupid stuff sometimes? Yeah, well, you know what? All players do. That's sports, okay? But the fact that they are still in the hunt here and they are not giving up should be enough for people to rally behind them. Okay? In the face of adversity, they've shown guts and grit. I think that Lexi Hull's 2 black eyes prove that. Okay? Now, we can criticize Stephanie White all we want because that's part of the game. You know, every coach in the WNBA is subject to that. That's just par for the course. But when we start doing stuff that's basically slanderous is where I draw the line. You know, calling her Sniffany White and Methany White, alluding to the fact that she's using drugs because she has some kind of a congestive problem that looks like allergies to me, okay? A situation where she's constantly filled up, constantly sniffing, sometimes coughing. You know, let me just say this. If people were to be doing that in print, they could be sued for slander. But because the internet is so wide open, people get away with it on the internet. Very few people are able to sue for anything on the internet, including harassment and trolling, okay? And to make that kind of assumption for Stephanie White, just because you don't like her as a coach, is kind of a baseline level of low life for me, quite frankly, because you don't have any evidence of that whatsoever. That would be totally slanderous if you were to put that in a blog or if you were to put that in a magazine article. You could be sued big time for that. And honestly, I think moving forward, there needs to be more regulation of the internet in that regard. Okay? In that regard. Because you could hurt a person's reputation by doing stuff like that. And I don't like that. I don't care. I don't care what you think of the person as a professional, whatever, whether it's a coach or a singer or anyone else. Okay? There has to be a certain amount of, I don't want to call it decorum, but a base level of decency in the world. We're missing all of that, quite frankly. So I bring this up because I have a kid who's 24 years old who has such a condition. And without belaboring it, I brought her to the doctor for this. And the doctor diagnosed her with a viral condition. She had a virus, and it resulted in like permanent postnasal drip. That's basically what was told to me. And she has been on a nasal spray and an antihistamine since that virus. That was 2018, I believe. Now, I was concerned. I never heard of anything like that before, quite frankly. And I wasn't concerned that my kid was on drugs because my kid is autistic and spends most of the time in the house, okay? But I was afraid there was something more going on with her body that was not just the result of having had a virus. So I took her for a second opinion. And without saying anything to the doctor, the second doctor diagnosed her with the same thing. And that's when we started having the discussion about what medication she was on. And the doctor said I would have put her on the same kind of medication. So there are real things that do cause those appearances for people. And that's the only reason I bring this up. I just don't think it's okay. All right, that's it. And I'm not talking about just content creators. I'm talking about a lot of fans too that I see in comments on other sites. So if you want to criticize Stephanie White, please feel free. All right. As a basketball coach, I'm sure she's used to that. But, you know, to start attacking people like that is, to me, not something we need to do to show how unhappy we are with the way she's coached the Indiana Fever. That's all I'm saying. So here's the plan. Tomorrow I'm going to make a video after work. We're going to talk about the CBA, which will be, once the season is over, once the playoffs are over, it's going to be front and center on a lot of fronts. But there's a couple of things I want to talk about relative to the CBA. So we'll do that tomorrow. And I've also got some other stuff that I want to show you. Maybe we get to look at some Caitlin Clark high school video for the benefit of those who haven't seen Caitlin Clark in high school. She was crazy, okay? She was crazy even then. And on Friday, the game is much earlier, so I will be, watching that game and making a video immediately after, but I may be back on with a short video before the game as well. So that's it for tonight, gang. You guys hang in there. Have a great night. And I will talk to you tomorrow after work. Good night.